I read a lot of Marvel comics over the past few years. Some were amazing, some were confusing, some I wished were longer, and some were a little disappointing. In this video, I want to share my journey of experiencing these comics over the years as spoiler-free as possible. So welcome back, my comic book friends, and let's kick it. Let me take you back to March of 2021 with The Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky, and what a strong start it was. The artwork was simply mesmerizing. Marco Cecchero's art was such a pleasure to look at. It hit the right balance between vibrant and moody, whilst maintaining this polished, sharp look. Whether it was the explosive fight scenes, the tense interactions, or Matt Murdock's internal struggle with his moral compass, I loved it all. Some of the quieter moments were fascinating too, such as Matt Murdock's life outside of Daredevil and the politics and power struggle of the criminal syndicates. It was exciting to see Kingpin or Elektra, as their presence was very impactful. Even smaller characters like the Owl seemed captivating. Now you know that's due to good writing. And the introduction of a new character, Detective Cole North, was most welcome. Everything felt exciting because it all mattered. The world was so engaging. It was genuinely edge-of-your-seat stuff, translated perfectly into a comic book format. I was quickly addicted, and before I knew it, I was 30 issues deep. I knew I had something special in my hands and wanted to once again expand my Marvel comic pool list, and so I did, beginning with Moon Knight by Jed MacKay. Was exactly more of what I was craving. It was dark, gritty, brutal with a dash of style. Our protagonist, Mark Spector, runs a business called the Midnight Mission, where he shelters his people from the weird and horrible. Unlike Daredevil, which was grounded in realism and focused on organized crime, Moon Knight takes more of a supernatural approach and blends this together seamlessly with organized crime. Despite my limited knowledge of the character, this was a great starting point, and I didn't feel like any background reading was necessary to enjoy the story. But just in case you wanted to, you could pick up Avengers, the 2018 series, issue 33 through to 37. These issues make up the Age of Khonshu storyline, which saw Moon Knight take on the Avengers on behalf of the Moon God Khonshu. This divisive story helps set up Jed MacKay's run on the character and is referenced in early issues. And then there is Dark Reign Zodiac, issue 1 through to 3. Zodiac is a prominent foe throughout this Moon Knight run. However, he's a rather obscure villain that had only a handful of appearances beforehand. The only one these worth checking out is Dark Reign Zodiac, which is where the character is introduced and will give you more of a sense of what he's all about. Now, MacKay doesn't waste any time. He throws you right into the action as our protagonist faces off against vampires, zombies, and even werewolves, painting a picture of the terrors that go bump in the night. Alessandro Cappuccio does a killer job with the art, applying his soft light to every panel, and I just love how the whole series takes place at night. The supporting cast of Reese, Soldier, Tigra, and Dr. Andrea Sturman fit perfectly into the world of Moon Knight, adding their own unique flavors to the character dynamics. What I love about this series is how it flows. It is smooth, doesn't waste your time with unnecessary blah blah, and decides to show instead of tell, making the most of this comic book format. Plus, the therapy sessions between Mark and Andrea sprinkled throughout the series is a really nice touch. Helps to flesh out the character in a meaningful way and adds necessary quiet moments between all of the chaos. This Venom series follows directly from Donny Cates' Venom run and the epic event that was King in Black. I really like what Al Ewing does with the series, focusing on dialing it down as it was necessary to switch it up, making this series a little grounded and then flipping the script with time travel elements. A few issues in and you will be thrusted into a tale that feels highly inspired by the storytelling style of Memento. If you're not too familiar with that movie, I highly recommend it. One of Christopher Nolan's earlier work, which is also being remade by the man himself. In short, the comic pulls and pushes you through time and space in the best possible way. The Venom comic is a mind-bending adventure, and I love how Ewing shakes things up and makes it highly entertaining. The artwork is consistently great. I also like what Ewing decides to do with Dylan, Eddie Brock's son, giving him a purpose and a voice. The father and son bonding is really put to the test, just as much much as Eddie is with the symbiote. This really is a mind-bending and gut-wrenching tale of symbiosis, the likes of which I haven't seen before. Donny Cates comes in smashing with the Hulk. At this stage of his Marvel career, he has some bangers under his belt, like Venom, which was a blast, and Thor, which I never got to experience, but apparently it had a strong start. As for the Hulk, I thought it was alright, wildly different to previous iterations of the character, and has a strong emphasis on the internal struggle between Bruce Banner and the Green Giant. In this comic, the Hulk is that little bit more unstable than usual, so he turns into a spaceship and journeys into the beyond. On the surface, it sounds bizarre, but just go with it. Unfortunately, this run is only 14 issues long, and Donny Cates is unable to tell his whole tale as he ends up in a bad car accident. This also prevents his Thor vision to come to fruition, and both series end up being taken over by different writers and wrapped up in the best way they could. I guess we will never know the full potential of this Hulk run, but as it stands, it's still pretty enjoyable, albeit a little crazy at times. Well, what do you know? My first Marvel event in quite some time, and what's even better is that it's a good one. Devil's Reign by Chip Zdarsky, with great villains and heroes going head-to-head in an epic 6-issue event with a collection of tie-ins which can vary in quality, the perfect conclusion to the preceding Daredevil run by Chip Zdarsky. Plus, the covers are absolute bangers. Daredevil, The Woman Without Fear. This is a continuation of the legendary run, but these covers, they leave a lot to be desired. I'll be honest here, I only really picked up 3 issues of this because the covers look awesome. In fact, the whole run has a great selection of covers, keeping it simple with a single color in the background, with She-Hulk striking a pose center stage. As for the story, it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm sure there are many people out there that loved it and it has its merits, but I find the dialogue to be very immature. And that's probably because my personal tastes were drawn to the likes of Daredevil and Moon Knight. Still, I can't take away from the fact that it has its fun elements, and I'm sure many people will enjoy it for what it is. Captain America Zero. So this one's a bit of an interesting one. It's an explosive relaunch of Captain America, but not as we know it, because it was an explosive start that would now split the comic into 2 new titles, that being Captain America Sentinel of Liberty and Captain America Symbol of Truth, with Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson taking center stage in their own books, but more on that later. Okay, alright, I'm gonna give this review a really good go, but you gotta promise me something. You have to be nice to me in the comments section. Hashtag be nice to Casper. I say this because I feel like no matter what I'm gonna say, you guys are probably gonna throw Rotten Tomatoes at it. The Amazing Spider-Man by Zeb Wells starts off a little confusing, but that's okay, we aren't supposed to know what has transpired just yet. Then we hit the ground running with the first 5 issues, which were highly entertaining, intense, and surprisingly violent for a Spider-Man story. Safe to say, I thought the first arc with Tombstone as the main antagonist was very enjoyable. Then issue 6 takes a pretty big tonal shift and feels really out of place. And maybe that's because it's the celebration of Spider-Man 900th issue, which is fine, I can live with that. As the issues move along from 7 through to 13, I found myself losing the plot a little bit. I think this had to do with a lot of the past plot threads from the massive amount of Spider-Man issues preceding this run, and I had no idea what the status quo was of the immense amount of characters in the world of Spider-Man. But it's alright, and then this happened. Now, Dark Web was the first event spinning out of the pages of Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man. At this stage, I had even less of an idea of who's who and what their agenda was, but was still reading the series like... I would highly recommend for people to check out the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus by Zeb Wells titled Beyond, because I think it's going to connect this Dark Web event a little bit better. it'll make more sense. It has the characters of Janine Godby, who becomes Hallows Eve, Ben Riley, who is now a character called Chasm, who, by the way, I think has a really cool costume design, and Madeline Pryor, the Queen of Limbo. I found all of these characters compelling and interesting in their own way, and I was invested in their motivations. Dark Web had other comics crossing over, like Venom, the X-Men, and Miss Marvel. I thought the X-Men and Venom crossovers were fun, whilst the Miss Marvel wasn't so compelling. As far as my enjoyment of Dark Web went, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It had some fun moments and cool artwork, and it introduced us to a character called Wreck-Rap. He's a demon from Limbo that was infatuated with Peter Parker Spider-Man. Wreck-Rap was a great dose of comical relief, super goofy and silly. His obsession with Spider-Man was limitless as he tried to mimic him to the best of his abilities, but just came out as plain hilarious. Now, when Dark Web concluded, yeah, here we are back again. Now, post the Dark Web saga, Spider-Man started to upset people a little bit. Spider-Man had now turned into Drama Man. It got a little dramatic, especially between the next major arc from issue 21 through to 26. I think a few people were still unhappy with the direction of the story, but I was still like... At this stage, the comic was a little inconsistent in the tone, and the direction wasn't completely clear until issue 31, which made it evident the Tombstone saga was making a little comeback. Then we had these cool issues with Patrick Gleason on the artwork. I was a big fan of these. And then it was time for this. I won't lie, I was pretty excited for the gang war event to take place. The supercrime landscape of New York City was on edge for some time in the Spider-Man comics, and it was time for the tension to explode. The event consisted of a total of 29 issues, and yeah, I bought every single one. My wallet got a good pounding. Hashtag rest in peace Casper's wallet. Miles Morales, Luke Cage, Spider-Woman, Elektra, Shang-Chi, and Jackpot all take part in the event. So for those wondering who Jackpot is, that is Mary Jane, who uses a slot-like machine that randomizes her powers. It's a whole thing. Just go with it. Anyways, as far as the tie-ins go, I found Miles Morales, Spider-Woman, and Elektra the most enjoyable, based on the art and story direction, whilst Shang-Chi, Luke Cage, and Jackpot were a little boring. I was genuinely surprised by Luke Cage because the writer was Rodney Barnes, and his take on this... That was Philadelphia, by the way, published by Image Comics, and it is so good. Therefore, I was surprised his run on Luke Cage and Gang War was so uninspiring. I thought the event had a fun and interesting start, but the climax just didn't fully satisfy me. I suppose in the bigger scheme of things, it was supposed to be a stepping stone into something bigger to come. As far as the scoring goes, probably another 7. Alright, one last time, I promise. As The Amazing Spider-Man is coming to a close with issue 60 or Legacy 954, Zeb Wells is stepping away from the comic. Now, as these final issues start rolling in, people have been giving them a little bit of love and asking why couldn't this be the whole comic? And I honestly don't have the answer for that. But at least it's nice to see the run is wrapping up on a positive note. Whilst Peter Parker commenced this run in a poor state and directionless and went through total hell and back, it's nice to see the character centering himself. It would be unfair to say that this was the worst thing since the Sinclair C5 electric tricycle, but it definitely wasn't amazing. But it had its moments. 7 out of 10. Yabuchi tackles Sam Wilson's return as Captain America in this new series. The issues do a good job transitioning seamlessly between the action-packed moments and the relationship building. The art from R.B. Silver is pretty great, and you get the sense emotions keep running high as international conflict brews in the background. Throughout the adventure, our Avenger bumps into the likes of Deadpool, Doctor Doom, Black Panther, and many more. Oh, and the White Wolf, I think, was a pretty great antagonist, scheming in the background, which kept the tensions on. Whilst these comics had their moments, the whole run ultimately felt a little bland and forgettable. I feel like there was a lot of untapped potential here for Sam Wilson, but I'm sure we will see him embark on bigger and better things in the future. Now, in order to complement this experience, you had to read the following. Steve Rogers returns, fighting the good fight in The Sentinel of Liberty by Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing, and Carmen Carnero on the art. This at times is a rich and creative comic, full of strong character moments, and has some high quality art and action. I really got a sense of what Carnero is capable as an artist, and she elevated this book beyond what the writers were capable of, to my surprise. The setup of the new menacing evil called the Outer Circle was interesting, but I wasn't completely sold on it. The comic felt a little darker than Symbol of Truth, which got my height meter going. Wow. I like how Kelly Lansing and Onyebuchi were working in tandem to ensure the two captain stories would eventually collide and come together in the grand finale. This is a cool concept that could have been executed that little bit better. The references to prior Captain America storylines were a nice touch and made the world all the more meaningful. I just wish the finale was as strong as some of the early story elements. I also wish the Captain America could do this all day, but instead he does it for 13 issues. Man, whatever happened to those days when we had super long comic book runs? Robert Kirkman, you the MVP, my man. And whilst splitting the two captains into their own adventures was cool, this next little comic was just as cool, if not cooler. Gail Simone and Phil Noto gave us a 5-issue miniseries titled The Variants, which starred my favorite Marvel Comics private investigator, Jessica Jones. Things get very strange very quickly in this run, as extra Jessicas start to make an appearance, which makes for some creative interactions. I particularly like Noto's ability to capture the emotional expressions of the characters, and his inking always looked on point. You do get appearances from the likes of Daredevil, Luke Cage, and others, but this is ultimately a Jessica Jones story, and it's a good one. This was a story drenched in mystery, hence very fitting for our protagonist to handle. I found this to be a friendly reminder that Jessica is a heavily underused character in the Marvel universe, and I would love to see more stories from her, just like we did way back when we had the Brian Michael Bendis run. Those were good. The Variants gets a thumbs up. Hashtag Jessica Jones all day, day. The grand finale to the run that I wish would never end, but all good things eventually come to an end. Despite this volume only lasting 14 issues, the quality remained unchanged. Zdarsky delivered on a tense story, whilst Kekero brought the pages to life and cemented himself as one of my favorite comic book artists. Many would agree it had the perfect ending to a perfect run, one that would be remembered and reflected on for years to come. Oh, and if you love manga, then when it comes to recommending comics, I highly recommend this one. Trust me, it's freaking awesome. So whilst Daredevil was busy with his final act, this happened. At this stage, my X-Men knowledge was a little rusty, so I decided to dive headfirst into a full-fledged X-Men but also Avengers-themed event titled Axe Judgment Day by Karen Gillan. Oh, and the Eternals played a big role in this too. As with previous events, I did the least sensible thing, and I bought every single tie-in and the main event. The storyline was built upon previous plot developments from the last few years, the Avengers assembling a powerful lineup at their base in the body of a fallen celestial called the Progenitor. In Avengers Volume 8, the discovery of X-Men's immortality through the mutant resurrection protocols in Immortal X-Men, and the Eternals' newfound knowledge about their purpose in Eternal Volume 5. It is safe to say the main plot is quite dense, with some subplots which are pretty rich too. Gillen tackles a lot at the same time. In short, the event is centered around placing all of Earth on trial in order to determine whether humanity deserve to live. The Celestials demand humanity to be technologically inclined life foragers, also known as TILF. Noting how their actions have frequently shaped reality and put the entire universe at risk. Initially, I thought too much of a good thing would ruin this event, but ultimately Gillen succeeds in entertaining. I thought the battle against Uranus was one of the highlights. The dude is so epic. I personally think a second read-through might gain better appreciation from me. I found all the moving parts a little convoluted at times. Whilst the event required a bit of brain power, the next comic not so much. Deadpool. I had some high hopes for this comic, but was ultimately let down by the cheesy writing and bizarre direction of Alyssa Wong. The whole time it felt like she was not the right fit for the character. The run only lasted 10 issues. Whilst the first issue was alright, the series went downhill pretty fast. The only saving grace was the Martin Kokolo artwork. The only hero here was Marvel for cancelling this dumpster fire of a comic. Thanks, Marvel. Miles Morales is back, looking better than ever, with a brilliant first arc introducing a new antagonist called Rabble. Despite her convictions coming across a little weak, I think the character design looks awesome, which brings me to the star of the show. The artwork by Federico Vincentini is an absolute standout. Every single page looks incredible and it is a joy to look at. The first 5 issues of the series are an absolute banger, jam-packed with action, drama crafted by Cody Ziegler, but by issue 6, Miles gets roped into That's right, only 6 issues in and Miles Morales is thrown into the next Marvel event. There is no escaping the Marvel multiverse of madness of events. That and Carnage, baby! Carnage Reigns is a short and sweet event spanning across Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Red Goblin, Carnage written by Alex Packnadell, and the Carnage Reigns Alpha and Omega. Truth be told, as far as this event goes, it's a fun distraction and doesn't overstay its welcome. The artwork is consistently great. Miles fights for dear life against the terrifying symbiote, and it's just good old-fashioned comic book fun. Now for the rest of Miles Morales. We get some sweet Hobgoblin action, followed by cool, chill times with Blade slaying some nasty vampires, and then yeah, the gang war stuff. Shortly after, Miles gets to wrap up some key loose ends from his previous story arcs, celebrating his 300th issue, and bloody hell, that's right. Miles gets pulled into another Marvel event. That's 3 Marvel events, 21 issues into the run. Safe to say, our boy Miles has been a very busy Spider-Man. Now, as for the event Bloodhound, more on that later. Instead, I want to praise the creative team for a bright, fun, colorful comic book that is widely accessible to many readers. Miles has been depicted as a humble young man, willing to learn what it takes to be a great hero and managing the vast assortment of challenges thrown his way. Here's hoping the comic gets a lot more mild-edge. We're back to the world of Spider-Man, with Janine Godby as Hallows' Eve, only 5 issues long, but is a great and quick adventure. Pieced together by Erica Schultz with artwork by Michael Dowling, and I love his depiction of the character. As far as minor characters go, I found myself following the journey of Janine, and I especially love her chemistry with Ben Reilly, aka Chasm. The duo are great, and I'm all up for seeing more of them. Hallows' Eve has an interesting assortment of powers, which allows her to turn into well-known Halloween-themed characters such as Dracula, Werewolf, Frankenstein's monster, amongst many others. With that, she can closely mimic the character's skills and abilities such as invisibility and phasing through walls when turning into a ghost. It's an enjoyable run and helps to expand one of the lesser-known Spider-Man characters in a meaningful way. Boo. At this stage, I really wanted to experience something mystical and weird, and Doctor Strange by Jed MacKay seemed like a fine choice, knowing he wowed me with Moon Knight. Wow. I was willing to expand my horizons. I could quickly identify the clever writing and tasteful wit, and was pleasantly surprised at the writer's ability to alter his style accordingly despite the change of genre and cast of characters. I'm not the biggest lover of this art style, but that's just probably my personal preference, and it does the job just fine. I gotta admit, as a newcomer into the world of Strange, I felt a little intimidated regarding the status of the character. I could tell a lot has happened in previous issues, and working out what has transpired was a little challenging. Just so you don't fall into the abyss of confusion like I did, here's some issues that could help you out a little bit. Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, the 1988 series, issue 48, 49, 57, and 58, so you can know more about the War of the Seven Spheres, but there is a brief recap in issue 6, if you wanted to skip that. The death of Doctor Strange, issues 1 through to 5, and the 2022 Strange series, issues 1 through to 10. Despite the rich lore backing Doctor Strange, I had a great time. There was humor, charm, and no shortage of Strange. Unless you consider this run to be too short at 18 issues, then yeah, there's a little bit of shortage. Well, surprise, surprise, another Marvel event. This time it's the Captains as they conclude their Symbol of Truth and Sentinel of Liberty run. Thankfully, it's a short event coming in at 7 issues, so my wallet has time to recover. The event commences with Sentinel of Liberty issue 11 and concludes with Captain America Cold War Omega issue 1. As far as the event goes, I'll probably give it a 7. There hasn't been any event that has made me overly enthusiastic, aside from Devil's Reign and maybe Judgment Day, as that had some hype moments. But as it stands, a lot of these events have been coming across as mediocre, which is a shame. I genuinely believe events in the Marvel Universe need to be nothing but epic. They should also feel a little more organic. If they space out these events, they would feel a little bit more special too. But that's my take on it. What do you think? Should the Marvel events chill out a little bit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's right, Jed MacKay is at it again, baby. This time it's the Avengers. He really has been a busy man at Marvel during the year of 2023. This time around, the Earth's mightiest heroes are composed of Captain Marvel, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, the Sam Wilson version, Vision, Black Panther, and Wanda. You'll be a few pages into the comics and boom, the world gets struck by threats on a global scale. At about issues 11 in, and our heroes get a bit of a breather. Well, sort of. It honestly feels like the Avengers are running around and extinguishing fires right, left, and center, and it makes for some great entertainment. But I do wish there were more moments of downtime, where we see our heroes just chilling, kicking back, talking about life, or eating pizza together like the Turtles. I know it's a small and silly gripe, as otherwise the writing and story direction is compelling. Now let's not forget about the artwork. It is consistently great. C.F. Filler was a great choice of artist, making our heroes look phenomenal as they combat all the threats the galaxy keeps throwing at them. Oh yeah, and they give a lending hand to the X-Men in the Fall of the House of X event and Blood Hunt. No one escapes the Marvel events. Hashtag no one is safe. Alright, things start to get pretty interesting and spicy with the Ultimate Invasion 4-part miniseries brought to you by Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch. Ultimate Invasion brings us all the way back into Earth 1610. Okay, hold up a second. It's quite evident that I had no idea what I was talking about at the time because Ultimate Invasion takes place in Earth 6160, which is separate to Earth 1610, which was the previous Ultimate Universe, and also separate to the Marvel Universe that we know and love, being Earth 616. Hold up, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about either, because Ultimate Invasion takes place in Earth 616 and 6160. Alright, that's enough confusion for one day. Now let the man finish his story. You know, the Marvel Universe that brought us a slew of cool comics separate to our main Marvel Universe of Earth 616. We got comics like Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, The Ultimates, and a whole bunch of others that unfortunately didn't make it very far. But here we have the Rebirth once more, done in a manner that I very much enjoyed. And then we have the Ultimate Universe, just a one-shot, but a very important one that sets the stage for a bunch of new titles like The Ultimates, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther, and my favorite, Ultimate Spider-Man. I think this was executed tastefully and fun, and I hope this universe gets a lot of attention and love for years to come, as long as the great stories keep on coming. Hulk Smash. Again, this time it is in the capable hands of Philip Kennedy Johnson, and when Nick Klein is present, then the book looks incredible. And whilst Cates' Hulk felt like a space odyssey, this comic feels a lot more rooted in the monster and horror elements that apparently Al Ewing did so well in The Immortal Hulk. I've been having a lot of fun with this Hulk run. It is fast, it hits hard, and it takes you on a whirlwind of an adventure. It is exactly what I would want from a Hulk comic. Nasty looking enemies and no shortage of smashing. It does a great job in being faithful and not neglecting the last two runs of the Hulk. And I love seeing writers respect each other's work. work and building on it. It makes the world feel a lot more alive, immersive, and intertwined. Because I've been having so much fun with this run, I really do hope that Johnson takes his time with this series and, you know, gives us at least 50 issues. Plus, Ghost Rider Sal is freaking cool. Hashtag Ghost Rider Sal for president. Blade by Brian Hill and Elena Casagrande. I feel that every issue of this comic was like, and I loved every bit of it. That's right, Marvel's slickest vampire hunter returns, and honestly, it's been way too long, Marvel, but I'm happy he's back in business, slicing and dicing those nasty vampires. I like this comic run a great deal. It was a great palate cleanser in between all the other comics, because how fast, simple and effective it was. But just when my hype was peaking and the blood splatter was at an all-time high, the series finished at issue 10, and I was devastated. However, Blade does return for a Marvel event, hashtag no one is safe, and then he gets another series called Blade Red Band. But sadly, apparently this is only a 5-issue miniseries with Brian Hill continuing the run, but this time with Sia Villa on the art. Plus, I want to see more of Tulip Hamato. Fun fact, it was her first appearance in Blade issue 2. Daredevil is back, but this time it's in the hands of Saladin Ahmed and Aaron Kuda. Now, this doesn't have quite the charm in the art or the writing department and has been met with a fairly positive reviews from the masses, albeit at this stage the comic run is a step down from the epic adventure that came before. Zdarsky was a tough act to follow, and Ahmed has a hard time ahead of him to mimic a fraction of that power. Regardless, I still encourage people to go out and check it out. I feel that even a bad Daredevil run is pretty good. Despite not feeling the level of hype I did before, I'm still interested to see what Ahmed and Kuda are going to bring to the table when all is said and done. And at the same time, I'm still on hunt for some of the legendary collected editions of the past. In recent years, I have come to love the character, and I'm excited to see what Marvel has in store for the man without fear. Captain America returns, and it's now under the veteran writer of J. Michael Straczynski. He did a solid run on Spider-Man before. I've been pretty impressed with this comic so far. The dialogue is rich, and because of this, I initially thought I would be falling asleep, but instead I have been hypnotized by the compelling interactions, vast amount of interesting characters, and found the story to be compelling. I specifically like JMS playing with the timelines, throwing us between the past and the present, and I love the nod to Einstein's theory of time, as it is hinted by the Captain, how the past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously. Einstein believed that time is an illusion, that both the future and the past are unchangeable, and will play out exactly the way they were meant to. By reading this comic, I was quickly reminded how competent of a writer JMS is, and I like the way he tells this story. Some of the humor threw me off guard. I didn't expect myself to be actually laughing out loud, and let's just say the interactions between Doctor Strange and the Captain were entertaining to say the least. The art in this comic is solid and clean, and I appreciate the pacing. In a world where instant gratification is all too common, JMS takes his time and rewards me for my patience. So Jonathan Hickman strikes again, except this time it's a little bit more original, and it's called Gods. I did more of an in-depth review of that, so you can check it out on the channel. Long of the short is, this is a banger, sadly a short banger with only 8 issues long, taking the reader on a mystical journey, something akin to American Gods, but way cooler. Plus Doctor Strange makes an appearance, which is very fitting. But once again, Marvel, this is just too short. Man, what is up with all the short comic series? I swear, it's terrible. Come on guys, where are those 100+ issue series, right? I mean, I want my comic run so long that when I stack these comic books, people should be able to see them from space. True story. It just occurred to me that I've never really read a Punisher comic, and technically this still really isn't a Punisher comic. This 4-issue miniseries is written by David Pepose and stars Joe Garrison, an ex-SHIELD agent filling in the boots of our protagonist, the Punisher. So apparently Frank Castle is indisposed or something from the previous series written by Jason Aaron, which I would be keen to check out. But in this run, we get some more of the awesome, merciless, butt-kicking adventures you would expect from from a Punisher comic. If I could sum up this comic in one word, it would be Stunchucks. Has to be one of the coolest S.H.I.E.L.D. gadgets to date. I mean Stunchucks. I do feel that there was a lot more story to tell here, and I'm not sure why it only wrapped up in 4 issues. Maybe the sales were pretty bad, but regardless, I want more of this. Hashtag Stunchucks. I really wanted this comic book to be good. And it was. Thunderbolts by Kelly, Lansing, and Borges on the artwork was brilliant. It is only 4 issues, and it's a very good follow-up on the previous Captain America saga of Sentinel of Liberty and Symbol of Truth. Despite it only being 4 issues, the creative team made the most of this mini-series. The cast of characters were super cool. I liked every one of them, which consisted of Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, man that's a long name, White Widow Yelena Belova, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, Shang-Chi, US Agent John Walker, The Destroyer Sharon Carter, oh yeah that's her new status, Red Guardian Alexei Shostakov, and The Revolution, which is also the new status, but this time it's James Barnes. The handling of each of these characters was excellent. I can tell the writers weren't trying too hard. It was simple and elegant. Each issue was in the style of an operation. At times it felt gritty and grounded, and it didn't shy away from superpowered elements, which were also handled with style. This was great. I want to see more of this, and I feel like Kelly and Lansing handled this better than their run on Captain America. I am so glad this decided to come back, and I was over the moon, pun intended, when I saw the same creative team return. After the previous 30 issues that made me go, no way, to only commence Vengeance of the Moon Knight like, ooh, to quickly find out new story beats were hitting like, wow. Moon Knight in the hands of McKay feels like what Daredevil in the hands of Zdarsky was. Simply brilliant. McKay ramps up the drama in the initial issues and follows on effortlessly from the previous run. The comic feels like Guy Ritchie's stylish filmmaking where intercutting and parallel action take place. Honestly, McKay knows how to make this comic cool and entertaining as hell. The sad part, this comic is only 9 issues long, but the happy part is Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu is next in line to continue the adventure once again with the same creative team for a little while longer. Here's hoping the next run goes on and on and on. It's time to talk about Spider-Man. Again. But not just any Spider-Man, it's the Ultimate Spider-Man by Jonathan Hickman with art by that awesome Marco Cecchino once more. This is the Spider-Man comic that I could recommend to everyone, even those tough guys from the salty spittoon. It's just that good. The comic just seems to get everything right. The interesting banter, the great storytelling, wonderful pacing, spectacular character building, and of course, the beautiful artwork. As this is an alternative take on Peter Parker and company, Hickman has creative rights like no other, and I get the feeling Hickman was asked by Marvel, if you could write any character any way you wanted, what would it be? And he said something along the lines of Spider-Man. And Marvel's like, alright guys, you heard the man, we are bringing back the Ultimate Universe 2.0, let's go, 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 go. What I love about this is how the status of the character is so different and feels like a natural progression of where Peter Parker would be in his life. I specifically enjoy the interactions between all of the characters. They feel so natural, engaging, and fun to follow. And when I get to the end of each issue, I am starving for more. This is comic book enjoyment at its peak. The whole thing feels familiar, but also new at the same time. This is another one of those comic runs that when it finishes, I will be devastated, just like the Daredevil by Zdarsky. But whilst it's still here, I will be enjoying each and every single issue and praying it gets at least 50 issues plus. Marvel, I know you can do it. I believe in you. Avengers Twilight, aka Old Man Captain America, bringing that cloud-yelling energy like no other by the masterful writings of Chip Zdarsky. This 6-issue series takes a look at a possible future where the Avengers are strangers, disbanded, and some even long dead. It's a world where technology reigns supreme and everything our elders do for us is taken for granted. What if those elders had a second chance to remind us of how awesome they are and how to make the world a better place? Avengers Twilight mixes sci-fi and superheroes in a highly relevant take on a world that has forgotten its past and adores fake news. It is a somber story, beautifully crafted by Daniel Lacuna in the art department and the story direction by Zdarsky. It was a great reminder how a high moral compass is timeless and has the ability to not only inspire but to overcome against all odds. Now, you fooled me once, Marvel, so don't blame me for being a little bit skeptical on picking up this Deadpool series. And I gotta say, it is so much better. It comes across as fun without trying too hard or being too cringy. This sort of honesty is refreshing. I think Cody Ziegler is onto something here. By the way, it is so plain to see he is a big manga fan. You get to see the Jujutsu Kaisen reference in Miles Morales' Spider-Man, but you also see the Chainsaw Man reference, which I loved, in Deadpool. I won't lie, I'm a little bit excited to see what this run has to offer. Jorge Antonio does a decent job depicting the mayhem from issue 1, and I hope he stays on for the majority of the series. I think Marvel has redeemed itself a little, and I'm finally happy to be reading some decent Deadpool for a change. Deadpool and Wolverine World War III has some nice artwork from Adam Kubert, but man, do I hate switching from like landscape to portrait whilst reading a comic. I mean, I honestly thought we were done with that like 30 years ago. It may sound like a silly little gripe, but I don't enjoy turning my reading experience into a steering wheel. This 3-issue adventure starring the Merc with a Mouth and the Savage Wolverine has been perfectly timed as a cash grab to coincide with the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, which was very entertaining, albeit the plot was non-existent, and I think it's fair to say this comic book replicates this. It's a fun and short experience, but the talent of Kelly and Kubert feels wasted here. I think they would have been able to tell a better story given more time and more comic issues, but that's alright. I got Cody Ziegler on the main Deadpool series, so that's gonna keep me busy. Hope you have space for one more event, because it's time for Blood Hunt, and it's a big one. I mean, there are 54 issues in this colossal event, discounting the 5 issues of the main event touted as Red Band, which include a couple of extra pages of story content and does not shy away from extreme violence. You don't have to go down the Red Band option though, unless you want to experience the explicit material. So Jed MacKay is at the helm of this event, which already sold me on it, despite being a little drained from Marvel events. Because my hype was off the charts, I decided on splurging on most of the tie-in material. Obviously, the Vengeance of the Moon Knight, Amazing Spider-Man, The Avengers, Doctor Strange, Venom, and Miles Morales Spider-Man. These were easy decisions because I already am collecting them. They're a part of my pull list. But I also picked up the free comic book day, which kicks it all off. Blood Hunters, Dracula, Strange Academy, Union, Jack the Ripper, Black Panther, Midnight Suns, Wolverine, X-Men Jubilee, X-Men Psylocke, and X-Men Laura Kinney, the Wolverine, so basically 95% of the event. Rest in peace my wallet. Truth be told, I enjoyed every bit of it, main event or tie-in. I was constantly being entertained in different ways. Sure, I enjoyed some titles more than others, but as a whole, this horror-centric event was a nice change of pace. And the whole experience felt like a good example of how to create an engaging Marvel event and have some meaningful tie-ins. Every hero was doing their part in the Marvel universe, in the best way they knew how to. The artist Pepe Larraz was delivering on beautiful art, and Marte Gracia made this artwork all the more impactful with his masterful inking. All in all, this was an awesome Marvel event, and perhaps one that resonated with me personally due to its dark themes and the endless hordes of vampires. Plus, it had some of my favorite Marvel characters, dishing out some serious butt-kicking. Now you're probably thinking, Casper, where are all the X-books? And you would be right to think that. So I did my best in experiencing X-Men through the deluxe editions, which Marvel was creating during the Krakoa era, and then, you know, they discontinue it because, you know, I had a taste of Wolverine, X-Force, Marauders, Excalibur, the Jonathan Hickman's X-Men Omnibus, House of X and Powers of X, the events like X of Swords, Inferno, X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine, and Sins of Sinister. I enjoyed most of these, but I did feel like Excalibur was a little weak and directionless at times. Marauders came across as a little preachy at times, and X of Swords kind of lost itself in the middle a little bit. The highlights for me were the House of X and Powers of X collected edition, edition, which was so good. Like, holy hell, what a way to start a series. I said it before and I will say it again, Hickman dropping off from the X-Men was a crushing blow. Despite this, I still have to commend Benjamin Percy for the X-Lives and Deaths of Wolverine, and Karen Gillan, Al Ewing, and Cy Spurrier for Sins of Sinister. And the X-Judgment Day event wasn't bad either. The Age of Krakoa involved a lot of talented writers and artists, and it can't be ignored and dismissed that they put a great deal of effort into this and gave it their all to create a banger of an adventure. The twists, turns, shocking revelations, it was all there and more. The scope felt epic, and as for the ending, I can't comment on it because I didn't get to experience it, because the collected editions haven't covered that. Thanks, Marvel. But I will wait patiently for Marvel to somehow figure out how on earth they will collect this entire story into collected editions, because I think they should. It was an important era of X-Men, filled with a lot of important creators. This was my Marvel comic reading adventure over the last few years, filled with hundreds and hundreds of comic issues, a blend of average and amazing storytelling. Now, if you were to ask if these stories are getting better or worse, my answer would be yes. And what I mean by that is that yes, there's a bit of both. There's good stories, there's bad stories. It really all depends on the writers and artists and how they apply themselves in the world of Marvel. Because ultimately, it isn't fair to blame the brand as a whole, but instead it would be fair to offer constructive criticism to the individuals who bring us these stories. Some of these writers and artists are just downright awesome time and time again, whilst others haven't found their rhythm yet, or maybe they don't have what it takes to please us readers with our high expectations. I mean, let's be honest, we can be a little bit high maintenance sometimes. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. It was a long one, and I want you to let me know in the comments below. Are you guys reading any Marvel comic books? And if so, let me know which ones and why you enjoy them. And thank you so much. I will catch you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.